Hi, everyone. Welcome to Genealogy Adventures. I'm Brian Sheffy.
And I'm Donya Williams. How are you all today?
Hope you guys are having a wonderful Sunday. As always, thank you for spending the next hour with us, however you're following us, wherever you're listening. We've got quite the show today, but just going to give a little shout out to all of our usual people we're seeing on our feed. Always lovely to see you, and lovely to see some new names and new faces too.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
we have quite the show for you today, so I'm going to kind of get straight into it. I'd like to take a minute to introduce our wonderful guest. We are joined today by genealogist, researcher, and public speaker LaJoy Mosby, who's the national president of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society. LaJoy is also a retired project manager with broad experience in managing federal-funded, minority-focused health and science projects. She's also actively engaged in leadership roles with a variety of local and national nonprofit organizations that focus on minority educational development and low-cost food for the public. And today we're going to be talking about genealogy conferences because I know that they happen all year round, but it's summer, and summer means genealogy conferences. And both Donya and LaJoy they had great time at the NGS conference in Richmond, Virginia. Sadly, I couldn't go this year due to conflicts in my schedule. So literally, with that huge genealogy conference fresh in their memories, we're going to talk about the benefits of going, some things to consider, some factors to take into considerations, but overall that they're just a really, really great kind of experience. So with that said, welcome to the show, LaJoy.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Donya. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Yes, you are our surprise guest. I just want everybody to know that. So I was just really happy that you were able to join us on that. You guys should have seen her when I asked her. I said, so LaJoy, how do you feel about joining us Sunday? I said, we're talking about NGS. I said, how do you feel about joining us? She was like, "Woo, girl, well," and she checked her schedule and she said, you know what? I will be there. And here she is. And I'm so grateful for that. Thank
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I was honored to be asked. Yes.
you. Thank you so much. So let's just get right into it. I just want to say, first of all, for me, this was my very first NGS conference. I've gone to an August one before. I've gone to Sons and Daughter before.
Mhm.
But this was my first NGS one. And this was done. I went through my job. Um, it was interesting. Um, it was I got some really, I want to say, kind of like weird questions about different things. First of all, I want to thank those who did come and who knew who I was. Like, you guys overwhelmed me with the whole, oh my God, you're Donya from Genealogy Adventures. And I said, yeah, but I was I was very overwhelmed by all of that, but I appreciate it. And I promise you guys, we will continue to work harder and continue to bring you stories like this and information and all of those good things. Thank you so much to Tony Grant, who came all the way from California.
Mhm.
And it was just it was very awesome, an awesome feeling, an awesome thought process that was going through my head. You guys just don't know. Brian and I was thinking about a lot of different things when it came to genealogy adventures, and you guys switched it up. You have no idea how you switched it up. So as far as the show conference is concerned, though, it was very interesting. The sessions that I did attend were very interesting. You could tell when someone didn't want to actually answer a question, but they answered it anyway because they were kind of uncomfortable with it.
Mm.
Um, there were certain things that did occur, but overall, I think it was really a good conference. Now, you tell me your thoughts.
Well, I thought it was a good conference. Now, I've been to several genealogy conferences as well, and this was my first in-person NGS conference. I've been to NGS during the pandemic. I've been a member for a few years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, but I've been a member of OG since 2000, and so I've gone to, of course, several OGS conferences. This, of course, is much larger. You have a diversity of topics that we also as well, but normally, as you know, the state genealogy conferences and some of the smaller societies are usually in a hotel. This was in a convention center in 2 buildings. And so we had been collaborating with NGS since last year. And so we made a major effort to encourage our membership to go there because, as you know, we had a big double booth there at NGS. So it was OGS at NGS. And so we had several members to attend, and our members of our National Executive Board attended as well for a variety of reasons. But I thought it was a good conference based on what my colleagues and my board members told me. They enjoyed it. They learned a lot. Excuse me. We had a variety of people coming to the booth. Now, OGS has always been an inclusive organization, so we have members of all races, creeds, and colors, as we say. They come to the booth that says, "I'm a member, and I've been a member for a long time." And I'm like, "Well, hello. It's a pleasure to meet you." So I got to meet people. And for me, being the national president, it gave me an opportunity to, of course, introduce myself to a variety of other organizations, genealogical vendors, and things of that nature. And according to my iWatch, I did a perfect week because I had a lot of steps in, as I'm sure you did.
So my question is, and I'm thinking more for newbie genealogists to kind of fairly intermediary level, who've never been to a conference before, maybe contemplating going to one. What factors do both of you, and I'm going to ask LaJoy to answer this first, what factors should they consider to figure out if a specific conference is the right fit for them, or whether, kind of how can they prepare to make it a rewarding and beneficial experience? How can they get the most out of it?
Well, I think for most of us, we usually look at the program and see if the program has workshops that we feel would be beneficial to us. There are always going to be workshops for beginners, intermediate, and usually advanced. And you want to be able to look at the program in advance and try to say, "Oh, that's the workshop I'd like to go to." Or if you have a favorite speaker that is on program, you're like, "Oh, I see that person. I'd like to hear what they have to say," especially if they're doing a new presentation, something they've not done before, you've not seen somewhere else in another format. I think that if it's a live conference in particular, make sure you have the physical ability to walk. No, I'm serious. You have to have the
seriously
to walk, and it's usually the conferences start early in the morning. They usually start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and so if you're a night owl, you need to know that if there's an 8 o'clock workshop that you want to be in, you need to get up. You need to make sure that you can get up there, and I would say. Always wear your most comfortable shoes. People like to be cute, but this is not. If you can be cute and comfortable, then that's when you need to do this. I always take a little notebook and I'm a fountain pen person, so one or two fountain pens with me so that I can take notes in class. Some people prefer nowadays to just take their tablet with a keyboard and just type away, or their laptops and type away. I noticed that this year. But I think that the key is to look at the types of workshops you'd like to participate in, and be open to asking questions. They want you to ask questions.
And Donya, before you answer, LaJoy, you actually touched on two things that are kind of important that I didn't even consider. If you have a tablet or a recording device, your mobile phone or a camera, always ask the event organizers if you can record and if you can take pictures, because sometimes at conferences that's not allowed.
Well, in this conference, for the most part, it was not. It was said up front that you are not allowed to do this. In the first day, which was the organizational members day, there were some workshops in which some of the speakers were like, "It's okay for you to take a photo of the slides on the screen." But for the most part, people would read before their presentation what they call the social media policy of NGS, which basically said, video, no taking photos of slides, because it's the intellectual property of the speaker, and they have the ownership of that information. And there's a syllabus. So if you need information from the talk, there's a syllabus for you to go to look at those particular um, key points. And of course, you can always go online and look up key points as well. And all of that, those things are in the syllabus. And nowadays we have digital syllabuses, so we have live links. So it's just a matter of being able to reach out and go to that. Yes.
And Donya, as a first-time attendee, when you were looking at the program and you were looking at the different sessions, how did you decide which session that you wanted to go to? And more importantly, if there were two sessions at the same time that you really, really wanted to do, how did you make the decision about which one you attended?
Well, I noticed with NGS that when there were two sessions at the same time, it actually was also the next day. Somebody would be doing something similar. So, for example, I wanted to go to Ancestry and I wanted to go to Blaine Bettinger's one, but the Ancestry one and the Blaine Bettinger one was at the same time. Mm-hmm. Well, one that Krista Cowan was doing, she actually repeated it the next day. So I was able to, go and do that. Now, I'm not saying that everybody will repeat each time. It might be something different for that person, because Blaine happened to have like he had like 4 different sessions. So even if I didn't want to go to that particular session, I might wanted to go. I could probably catch another one and still ask the question that I wanted to ask him if I had one after the thing, because they always kind of sit around and listen to everyone and, try to catch a question that they weren't able to get during the session. But that was one of the things that I did. I definitely looked at what was going on to make me decide which session that I was going to attend. It also made me realize that I am actually more expert than I thought when it comes to genealogy. And I don't mean that, braggingly. I'm saying I really did not think that I was as advanced as I was until I started to look at some of these sessions. And some beginners may realize that they're more advanced than they think, because if they go to a beginner session and see, because the agenda allows you to see what they're going to be talking about and all that, and you realize, you know what, I don't need that. And you go to something that you need, as opposed to going by what you feel like your level is as a genealogist. So that was some of the things that I looked at, and then started to realize certain things about myself as well.
Mm-hmm. I will say that, I like to go to workshops on topics that I haven't done before.
Yeah.
So there was a lady who presented on Confederate slave payrolls. Now, I've not found any of my ancestors who have been on the Confederate slave payrolls, but I wanted to see what she had to say. She was from the National Archives, and the information is in the public. It's digitized, it's online. So I'm like, okay, so how do you best use that data set? How do you use those records? Where can you find them? What states are there? Explain to me who got the money, because it wasn't us. And so, how did that work? And it was for me, it was a good workshop. I also like going to state-specific workshops. I have an affinity for Kentucky because I'm a member of the Kentucky Genealogy Society, and that's my father's line is in Kentucky. So I went to the Kentucky Genealogy workshop because I was interested to see if there was something that perhaps I wasn't aware of, or something new that I could learn. I think many of us, if we have been doing this for a while, may find ourselves as intermediate, or maybe even advanced genealogists on the lower end of the. I'm not going to put myself up there with some of some of the speakers that we have, but in terms of knowledge and understanding and knowing a variety of things, especially if we've had educational experiences that have helped us learn genealogy methods and strategies, you might find that we really know more than we thought we did, just like Donya said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I can imagine a conference as large as NGS, there's probably at least one session for kind of different groups of people. So for instance, as our audience knows, I have a DNA uncovered a Jewish great-grandfather. Mm-hmm. I'm still fairly new to Jewish genealogy. It's not particularly easy, especially as he was an immigrant. Mm-hmm. So anything about Jewish genealogy, I would actually be torn if I had two sessions, like one about free, anything to do with African American research, and then Jewish research. I guess in this instance, I probably would go more for the Jewish one because I'm still learning. I'm still kind of learning the tips and tricks on how to do that.
And I think that would be a good decision. You want to go to the workshop where you know about the subject that you know the least. And so that gives you this new set of information and knowledge that you didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I would say for professional genealogists, when I'm saying doing paid work for clients, some of those kind of what I thought at the time were really left field subjects. I'm really glad that I did, like going to conference sessions about homesteaders and homesteading, finding out all about those records, and then lo and behold, it may not have come into use immediately, but I think within 2 years of going to that session, I had a client who descended from people who were homesteaders. So I knew exactly what records to go to and what to look for. So I would even say to people, even if you don't think that a strand or a particular session is going to be immediately relevant to you, try one. You never know when it's going to come in handy. Another one that I went to was the Freedmans. The Freedmans, a couple of sessions on those, people who were held by Native Americans in Indian territory. And I think within months, that one was within months, I was researching for a client who descended from that group of people.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to go back real quick on something that LaJoy said about walking. Guys, especially if you get, if it's a big conference hall like this one was, you had to go between two buildings in this particular NGS. So, but the one thing that I noticed, and that was with, it was a lady that she actually rented the riding cart, and she was able to get around, with that riding cart. So they do provide certain things that will allow you to get around if you're not a big walker. But yeah, I'm in total agreement with LaJoy when it comes to that, because I was tired. And I know that first day, whether from me getting up, driving there, then getting there, then, you're going to be exhausted. That, you're definitely going to be exhausted that first day. When I think I was asleep before my head hit the pillow on the first day. And it was exhausting. And the walk back and forth, that was something that was really exhausting.
And I forget what venue was that?
It was the Richmond Convention Center. So it's not as large as the Washington, D.C. Convention Center, but think about it, guys. We have been sitting at home like this for 3 years. And even if we are people that, like myself, I work out, but, I don't, even for me, I found it to be a challenge. I mean, I was able to do it successfully and without any significant pain, so to speak. But, many of us who are in the genealogy arena are not millennials, even though there were some millennials there. So many of us are boomers. So you have to know your limitations. I will say that. You'll have to know your limitations. Yes, there's most conferences that are live now have accessibility options for people who cannot walk long ways. You'll have scooters and things of that nature. So other conferences I've been to, I remember I had hip replacement in 21. So when I went to a conference, I ended up on a scooter. I was trying to be Speedy Gonzalez on the scooter at the convention hall, but it was fun actually. But
they fun.
But you do, when that is available, depending on the organization. It was that. I see Shelley saying it was her and her cane. And we talked about that. The ability to walk. Sometimes you get to a place and you're like, okay, I'm here. I'm just going to be here for a little while, and hopefully that works for people. But I think this is why we, as we go back to being live, we have to adjust ourselves and our expectations to the physicality of being in a live conference. There were some presenters that required masks. So I made sure that I informed all of my team that was going that make sure you bring a mask with you. And of course, I brought a packet of masks with me just in case somebody forgot them. And we had to have our vax cards. So, and if you didn't have a vax card, you had to have a negative test. I brought a couple of tests with me. Just, the Girl Scout in me was like, be prepared. So you had the, pardon me, there were the protocols that we had to wear bands every day to imply that we were COVID free. And of course, by the time we got sober, somebody tested positive. Pardon me. And there's some thought she may have brought it with her, but because she wasn't particularly showing any symptoms, but they did publish saying, hey, somebody here has tested positive. So
Yeah,
all
they
of
did
us
do that.
will wait 5 days and test and make sure that we're all okay, of course, right?
Right, that's right. Yeah, the millennials were definitely in the house. I don't know where my generation was. My generation, I don't think
What are you, Gen
my
X's?
generation. I'm a Gen Xer.
There were some Gen Xers there. I mean, I think there were a lot of boomers. This is
There were a lot of
a
boomers.
lot of boomers. There was a lot
It
of
was a
boomers at
lot.
this conference, and older boomers at that. So, but there were some. That is a concern for all genealogy societies, bringing
Yes.
younger adults, young adults, and youth into our organizations, so that not only can we sustain our organizations in the long run, so that we can provide a conduit for them to understand what we're doing, to create an interest at a younger age. You don't have to be retired to start your genealogy. You could be 10. As some people said, you could be 20 years old and be working on your genealogy.
Which is true because the younger genealogists are out there. I too immediately spring to mind. We had a young gentleman from Florida called TJ Elias, who specializes in Eastern European genealogy. We've had him on the show.
Yes, I remember
He's amazing. He's very articulate speaker. Then you have people like Darius Brown, who's done an amazing job researching enslaved people held at Middleton Place. Again, I believe Darius is still under the age of 30. And again, he's really enthusiastic about what he does. He's really knowledgeable about his subject area, and he would make a great speaker.
I think we also have to maybe modify our conferences so that they are appealing to some of these younger people. Going to a workshop is basically a lecture, and you ask questions. Well, does that feel like school? Or not? So, what types of, how do we modify the presentation so that perhaps they're more interactive? People get to do a variety of things that might be more appealing to a younger generation. And I'm still thinking about that myself. How do we do that? And I think one of the things we're going to have to do is just ask them, maybe, allow some of the younger ones amongst us to say, okay, you got an hour to do something. What do you want to do? How would you like to do it? How would you like to discuss genealogy? What does it mean to you in this period of time? And because I was thinking about that, I think about these things. It was a 2.5 drive from Richmond. So you think about these things, about ways to bring in younger people. And this is something all genealogy societies are grappling with. All of us. I can assure you that.
So let me ask you this question in talking about that, because one of the reasons, like, I know that my children are not interested, because as as a researcher, one of the main things you start to think about as you get older is who's going to pick up your research after you go on, or even better, who's going to not let what you've already found just disappear. So you have to find someone that's interested in it, but they're not interested in it until they get to a certain age. Then all of a sudden, when people are gone, and that's when you start hearing oh, I should have asked her this when she was here. Or, how do you, what are other ideas that you think that we could actually get younger people like my daughter? My daughter is 30. So people like her, and even my baby, who I guess he would be considered the Z generation. I don't know. But he's 20, he'll be 22. So how do we get them involved, or even get them to want to know that these things happen, especially given the fact that slavery is being made such a bad thing? Learning that part of history is such a bad thing. no one wants to know it now. So how do you, how do you reintroduce that?
It's an interesting question because I think one of the things sometimes I think about our community is the connectiveness to our past that we perhaps have lost. There are a lot of things that my great grandmother knew how to do that I don't know how to do. I remember watching my great grandmother make dandelion wine in my grandmother's kitchen. I have
Wow.
one memory of it. Now, given the way we use pesticides today, you would dare not go out and pick dandelions out in the field and try to make wine out of it. But things that try to, but it's a memory that I have. I wish I did know how to do those things and know how to connect people. I've tried to get younger members of my family interested by trying to show commonalities that they have perhaps with an ancestor. Oh, you like
Mm-hmm.
music, or somebody else like this, or you can sew, or you like to design. Did you know your great aunt was great in this, that, and the other?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps it can pique their interest. We have an AUX member in the DC area that does a program for youth and young adults, and with the idea of trying to help them understand the history and the social context of it. I have never seen my enslaved ancestors as victims. I've never looked at them through that prism at all. And maybe that's naive on my part, but I have not, because they were resilient and they survived it. So I don't tend to see it as this horrible thing, even though it was a horrible institution. But without it, I wouldn't be here. And I'm a deep South girl, and I want to be. I always say I would be careful of with my words, but these are my words. These are my feelings. I just it's interesting to me. I don't, and I recognize there were a lot of terrible things that went on, but I think that we just have to look at our ancestors as the wonderful, resilient people who were able to marshal on and to allow us to develop our lives over time. But I think that someone's saying that we should be more accepting of young genealogists. Now, that's also true. A lot of times we've always done it this way, so why should we do it differently? When the young people want to come in, you need to allow young people to
take the reins.
Well, yes, and it's okay to do things sometimes differently, as
Mm-hmm.
long as it's done. Let's put it done correctly. Now, you don't want to go off on a tangent, because sometimes people go
Right.
down a rabbit hole because they don't have a good understanding of the methodologies and strategies, and they don't really have it's where do you get your history from? Let's be clear. Your history has to come from credible sources. You have to, but if you are, if you have all of that in place, then there are things that you can do, perhaps that would be appealing.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on what Joy said, because at some point, whether it's meant to be or not, genealogy is a flexible thing. I think sometimes non-traditional genealogists, and I'm going to classify Black genealogists as that, we kind of have to push for it. But it was I can't remember the word that LaJoy used. I think it was traditional. Enslaved genealogy is not traditional genealogy. We've had we've had to push and fight to develop and think about ways to develop our practice in order to even be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were still stuck in this like 1900, 1950s paradigm of kind of white European genealogy, that would be us. We're talking about, including young people, but on the same token, that would be our community of genealogists that would be affected by that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
So let's get to the nitty gritty of all of what really, as far as NGS is concerned.
Well, can I preempt that with just one question?
Sure.
So, because again, there's going to be differences between small events, larger events, like purely kind of ethnocentric theme, whether it's like a Spanish-speaking genealogy event or a Black genealogy event. Given that I think NGS is officially the largest one. So it's like a Big Ten event that's got to cater to so many different demographics and so many different groups of people. But I'm curious to ask the both of you, What percentage of the programming was kind of catered to Black genealogy, and were those sessions spread out through all the days of the event?
Well, they, as an NGS, have indicated that they were going to devote 25% of their programming to diverse audiences. I can tell you that at this particular conference, we have been, like I said, talking with NGS over time, and we came to the conclusion of developing a series of workshops that were named for our founder, James Dent Walker. So the James Dent Walker series of workshops, I admit, were all on Saturday. They were all right in a row on Saturday. However, our speakers, those same speakers were speaking all through the week and in other
capacities,
other days. So even though we had tagged 5 workshops specifically for the James Dent Walker series, they were there were the same speakers along with additional ones were speaking all through the week. So you could see that there were workshops on Native Americans, there were workshops on Jewish communities, there were workshops, I believe, on Hispanic communities. They are working on it. I could see a variety of African Americans that were speakers. I don't know that there was anybody that I didn't know. So that, there's Brian, as you know, there's a community of speakers that speak, at several conferences. And so, but it seemed to be, there was an opportunity to at least have African American, let's say, information and education every day of the conference.
Mm-hmm. It just strikes me that, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing because I wasn't there and I haven't seen the program, so I don't know what the individual sessions were like, but it just strikes me as someone getting 4 or 5 slots seems a lot to me, where I'm sure that all of their talks were high value, but at least 2 of those could have been given to up-and-coming speakers, new speakers, people researching new aspects of genealogy that haven't been covered or not widely discussed. It just seems to me giving 4 or 5 slots to just one person, you just not going to get a great return on that.
Well, I think whoever reviews your proposals has to be open to what is you have to write a good abstract. You have to write a good proposal. Mm-hmm. And an engaging proposal. And sometimes if you are unknown to everybody, it might be a little harder. But if you have done some presentations and you have a little bit of a track record, it might make it easier to be selected. As the person said here in the chat, anyone can submit. That doesn't mean that anyone will be selected, but anyone certainly can submit.
Yeah, but when you think about that, and then you think about African Americans, and you think about what they had to go through to get to where they are today, no matter what it is, we've submitted in certain things all our lives, and they still just kind of turn their back on us just because of the color of our skin. Now, I am not by in any means saying that NGS did that, as far as that's concerned, but I am in some agreement with Brian when giving people more than one slot. 2, okay, especially if it's 2 totally different topics that should be addressed at that particular time. But more than that is a lot, and then and you're also not getting the variety, the diversity that you're shooting for if you're giving it to the same person each
Understood.
time.
And that's something that's something we all have to look at, because I know even with our conference we have people who submit 4 and 5 and 6 proposals. And then, we have to look at, do we give this person 2 so that we can get more, a different variety here, but they have out of the 6, there are 3 really good ones, that we think would be of interest to people. So, those are the kind of things that the reviewers, and I must admit, I've never been on the reviewer side. I'm the administrator here. So that our wonderful review committee will have to take a look at this year. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Oh, and let me say this: we've extended our for OGS, we've extended our proposal period for a few weeks. So if there's additional, for those of you who've submitted already, if you want to throw another proposal in there, you can. And if those who's like, oh, I missed the deadline, go to the website. You can submit your proposal.
Okay. Well, there and there's something else since we're talking about that. I think it was Brown. Miss Brown was posting all of the different um talks. I mean, the different conferences that are coming up, talking about Maggie, talking about the Institute of Reader, all of that. I want to thank them for doing it. I didn't put it up here because it was so much that it probably would have cut your face off. It was a lot of stuff. So what I will say is at the end of this, we will make sure we have resources listed for those who want to attend or submit to any of those upcoming conferences. And that's why I just wanted them to know that's why I did not put that up there. But I do want to get to, to the nitty gritty of this. So NGS was not known to be welcoming at one point. And this year they decided to put out an apology for that. What were your thoughts on that? And what are steps that do you think they're taking the right steps as far as moving forward?
Well, NGS had developed an EDI. I'm a member of NGS. Let me be clear about that. They had developed an EDI, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee a few years ago. We were aware that the apology was coming. We being AUGS. We had been invited to look at the first draft because it did mention AUGS. And we needed to make sure that the information was correct. And it was a learning experience for, I think, all of those involved, because everybody had to go back and look at their records and in their archives to figure out fact from, I won't say fact from perhaps almost fact. And so it was a learning experience, and I participated in it as well as getting information from. We have founded, 3 of our founders are alive, and 2 of them were graduate students when AUGS was established. So we had made sure that at least one of those persons weighed in significantly about their experience with NGS. They were all members of NGS back in the day, and some may probably still be, but it's a good first step. It was an excellent first step. They were not the first to do it. Let me be clear. There are regional organizations who published statements of inclusion in as early as 2020. State genealogy societies that publish statements of inclusion. However, a statement is one thing. Actual activities and actions are another thing. But they have taken the steps forward to put things in place so that they can move forward. You have to remember, this is beginning. It's not an end. It's not perfect. They did I thought they did a good job with the statement. They discovered Mr. James W. Mars, who we didn't know about, who was when we initially were talking, we were like, well, who was this person in 1960 who you rejected? Was it Mr. Walker? Well, it wasn't. It was one of his colleagues. And Mr. Mars has a very stellar background. They were both, and they knew each other. And so we found that out. And so I think it was a step in the right direction. Let's see how they move forward. They continue to move forward, continue to do things that are more inclusive. It got a standing ovation in the room. And so we'll see. We'll see as time goes on.
Well, I said Brown. I'm sorry, Miss Bowen. She responded. She was like, "I'm tired of Black presenters in one cluster." But you actually just explained why that was like that. Now, given the fact that it was on the last day, that's that's a whole nother issue. But overall, that is why that was like that on that day. I don't remember seeing this, but I wanted to put this question out here. Does NGS have info sessions on writing presentation of proposals? I don't remember seeing that.
I don't either. Their compendium was 600 pages, and I did not get through all 600 pages before I went or while I was there. So I don't remember that, but that is
Yeah.
certainly something that uh, I think all of us could probably help people with.
Benefit from
Mm-hmm.
and benefit from. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Judith B. Casey, she said, and you might not know this, you might, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. But she was asking how many African Americans attended the conference, and unfortunately, we're not able to answer that
No,
question.
no. I could say that there, that I would imagine, let me be clear that in-person conference attendance overall for most conferences is down in general. However, they had a good showing here at NGS.
They did.
We saw African Americans every day, but as you say, I have no idea of how many people were there.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. And I don't know that they asked that question, and so I'm trying to remember. So I'm not even sure they'd be able to ask that question. Maybe they would, but I don't know. I don't remember that being a selection in the registration process.
Mhm. And I was going to say, again, a word that I keep hearing is community. And that is, again, if you've never been to a conference, and I'm going to say, even if, okay, I think a lot of genealogists, we get labeled as being introverted,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little antisocial, a little
Mm-hmm.
shy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're any of these things and you think that's going to put you off going to a conference, try to get over it because they're amazing. Even if you don't think you're going to meet someone, you may meet someone who has ancestry in the same county that you're researching or the same state that you're researching that's just sitting a couple of chairs away from you. I can't think of just the number of times I've just struck up a conversation with a complete stranger, and it's been an amazing, we ended up having a really amazing conversation or just having a really good laugh. That community is there. And in terms of being a Black genealogist, the professional community of Black genealogists is fairly small, nationally speaking. We all tend to know each other, or at least know each other's names. It's wonderful to kind of meet up. And as I was saying to Donya this morning, or I think it might have been yesterday, to me it's almost like a mini family reunion every time I go to one. It's just, hey Bernice, or hey Shelley, or hey Andre, whoever it is, or Renata. It's wonderful, and I'm happy that I'm at that stage where no matter what conference I go to, I know I'm going to know at least 5 or 6 people.
Well, I will say one of the things that they utilized, they had a conference app, and you were able to create communities. And I have to do a shout out to my newsletter editor, Mary Crosby, created an Onyx community, and she was on the leaderboard on the app for her engagement there. And so we actually had a meetup. We had a wonderful meetup one night. We had a lot of people. We met in had a very casual meetup in a hotel. People talked about their genealogy experience. People got to meet each other. It was really nice. And so the next day, you see this person that you met yesterday, and you're right, Brian. You do see people that you know. Of course, it was great for me to see members of OGS, and we had a lot of people come by our booth. There, like I said, I got to meet members. I got to meet other people from other organizations that I'd only seen like this. In a virtual setting, got to meet them in person, and it is a community, especially with the African American genealogy, that we have our own community. We do see each other. We see each other. We support each other, and it's a very positive thing. It's wonderful to see. Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that our community is all, it's very small too.
Yes.
So it wasn't hard to walk into. That was one of the things that I think I enjoyed most about the conference, is that I was meeting people that I've only known them from online. Mm-hmm. So like Tierra Cotton, I met her for the first time at the NGS, and I just thought it was great to actually. Now I not only do I see her face on a picture, I see her face to face, and I love it. And I got to hug her, and I got to, just to really be, just to be. It was a very, very open conference. And then another thing that I thought was happening. Now I know I tend to give off this persona of being a fighter all the time or whatever.
And, not really. No.
That's because you know me. But for some, you know, for others, you know, they kind of take that in that way. But I need you guys to know I'm probably one of the sweetest people that you could ever meet, and that's if I do say so myself. But the thing is that there was this one lady who was on the scooter and she couldn't get around. And those types of times, I feel that's when I feel most like everybody is one. So I wasn't gonna let this lady struggle with her food. I wasn't gonna let, because there was no basket on the cart to get around. So she was either having to maneuver her scooter or hold her food, one or the other. She couldn't do both. Well, at least I felt like she couldn't do both. She proved me wrong in some instances, and but it was just really, it was very unified. It was a very unifying thing, is what I'm trying to get at. And you know, I was able to get that lady's food. I was like, you give me your food. And I was talking to her like I was talking to my mother. And I'm like, come on, lady, give me the food. Stop playing with me. And you go and do this. And she was like, well, okay, this is my angel. And that's what she would say. This is my angel, everybody. And but you know, it's a very unifying thing. And I did get that from this particular conference, something that was very unifying. Yeah, yes, there were things that was questioned to you that just kind of threw you, when you just looked at people like, did you really just ask me that? And or did you really say that to me? But overall, it was a very unifying thing.
I look at it this way, Donya, and so we had people come to our booth, and this is a new experience for them. You know, we had Oggs was very present at NGS
Yes, they
for the
were.
very first time that I'm aware of, and we had a lot of people come to our booth, and it was people who were inquiring. You know, and I understand this is something that they're learning. Perhaps, as you say, they never thought about it. And so it was, we had the daughter-in-laws that were people of color. We had the son-in-law, and the son-in-law's father is a very colorful person. And I was like, okay, so this is what I would suggest that you do, you know, and I did suggest that because, and I understand it. She loves it. She said, you know, I really like this guy, but I don't know whether his stories are real or not. I'm like, well, get his son to talk to him. You know, let his son quietly talk to him without anyone else around, and maybe he will be able to uh, tell the story. And then you also have other professional genealogists there. I have done, and I know perhaps you have done too, Brian, institutes where they're comparatively the students in the room, people of color are in the minority in a class that is focused on African Americans, and that's because other people are also trying to learn this genre, so to speak, as well. And so you do have people who are interested in learning about African American genealogy, and we had a lot of those people come to our booth. But we also had people that said, I have this information. I now need to figure out how I can make it visible to the world. And so I'm trying to talk to some of our partners to say, how can you help us in that regard? Somebody has a diary, it's not going to be in a public venue, and they want to be able to scan pages and help someone find their people. Where can we go to do that? I would love to say that Oggs has the technology and the wherewithal, but we do not. I'm not going to lie about that. So I'm going to have to look at some of our partners to say, is this something you'd be willing to help us with? And so perhaps that this was the beginning of people being willing to confront things and be open about things. There were a lot of people that came to the booth that talked about they now know that their families are enslavers and they were enslavers and they were disappointed in finding that out. But yet now they have this information, and what are they going to do with it? And how do they help make connections? So you have all of those things were also a part of the conference as well.
And I'm going to say, and I'm going to give a shout out to people who are more interested in history than, say, genealogy. You're interested in American history, you still should make the effort to go to a genealogy conference because you will learn history that is not taught. I'll use me as an example. Phoebe Hayes, a wonderful researcher and genealogist in Louisiana, invited me to speak to the Genealogy Society in Lafayette, Louisiana. First of all, that was the first time I'd ever been to Louisiana. That was the furthest south I had ever been in the entirety of my life. Amazing experience, by the way. So after I did my session, I attended every session that I could. I learned so much about Louisiana history, from the Thibodeau massacre to status of Louisiana documents and what's in Spanish and what's in French and where they are and how the parishes were done, and people have baptism names but different legal names. So I learned so much over the course of that weekend, and it all really impacted on history. And I think that's kind of the forgotten aspect of these kind of conferences, is the history part.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wanna piggyback off of LaJoy when she was talking about the questions, and yes, I do understand those types of things are going to be asked. However, I also want to be clear. Our research, and this is to anybody who is researching African Americans at this moment, our research is no different until after 1870.
Right.
That's it. And that's the part. So I guess us being there, that gave her the opportunity to say, hey, because we did have one lady who came up and was like, yeah, I can't research this. I'm trying to figure out, where do I start with researching this one lady? So we responded, okay, give us some information, some background. Oh, well, she was born in 1922. 3 census records that are available right now. And I kind of looked at her for a minute, and Yaya responded, was talking to her and everything. And then that's after Yaya had spoke, said some just wonderful things, just telling her the basic stuff. That's when I stepped in and I said, you research her just like you would research anybody else until 1870. It's not that our stuff is hard. It is harder. However, we just hit our brick wall faster than you. That's the biggest difference in African American research and traditional research. We hit our brick wall really, 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 really fast.
I'm going to filter that just a little bit and say enslaved African American research, because free people of color are still on,
exactly
more likely than not, it's similar research to researching white ancestry. The only difference with free people of color, the fact you will not find them on voter registers because they weren't allowed to vote because they weren't citizens in the slavery period. The other record set that's different for them than for white people is some states, not all of them, but some of them, require free people of color to have freedom cards, freedom registration cards. You go to a courthouse, I'm free, this is why I'm free, blah, blah, blah. But enslaved research after, before 1865, that is different. You have to have a completely different mindset. You have to start thinking a little bit, use traditional methodology, but think a little bit outside the box. And even, you have to adapt it. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
What I think we want people to understand is that, as you said, that I think there's been this mystery around African American research for some people, that, oh, it's so different. No, well, okay. Just like you said, there are nuances to it, but it can be done. And it can be done by a variety of people if they understand the nuances.
And again, that's something that frustrates my soul. And I know Donya will clench her teeth when I say this sentence. There are still people who believe that we cannot research enslaved people.
Right.
That it cannot be done.
Right. Which we know is not true. And I always tell people, you can find your people. And I tell people that all the time. You just have to learn how to different record sets. You have to just expand your mind as to where to look for the information, because I found it. You found it. We've all found it. We know, and many of us in the genealogy community can go. Some of us can go back to the 1700s. Some can go back to even 1600s. So we know that is not true. It's just a matter of helping people understand the methods and the strategies so they don't get frustrated and give up. And so I know we're running out of time here. I'm looking at the time for you.
Yeah.
I want to say that we all have indicated that, yes, genealogy conferences are important, whether they're virtual or in person. I think they're worth the time, the money, and the effort to participate in them. You learn everything, not everything, but you learn so much in a compact period of time. You got usually sometimes 3 days, 5 days and yes, you go from dawn till dusk, and you can get a significant amount of information that you did not know that can have you after you come back home and recover, or so that you can utilize that information within your own research. So it is a valuable tool for any genealogist or historian to go to a genealogy conference.
I'm a veteran of genealogy conferences, and I'm staying even to this day. I have yet to come away from a conference without learning new things.
Yes.
Plural, not new thing, new things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show and for watching our time. That is most appreciative, because that's the kind of stuff I be looking at all the time. So, but I do, I'm so glad that you were our very first special surprise guest.
Oh, I'm honored.
I really love teasing people about that over the weekend too. Because I had people reaching out on Instagram. Oh, come on, you know me. I'm your cousin or whatever. It's like you can tell me who the special. I'm like, nope. You're gonna have to pop on live.
Tune in to watch. And,
well, I hope your audience enjoyed it today. I hope I was able to provide some insight.
Oh, we have.
Right.
Yes. So next week, guys, we're gonna have one of my favorite people, Shelly Murphy, on, along with, I'm hoping, Jawan, and also it was a third person, and now I can't remember the name, but they're going to talk to us about some of about university research.
Oh, yes.
We're going to talk about how all these universities now are just starting to really dig into African American research and trying to figure out what exactly happened. So make sure you guys tune in next week. And
wasn't it Renata? Isn't it Renata that's joining us next week?
Yeah, that's what it was. And I was getting ready to say her name too, because I wanted to thank her for just doing the things that she does. And I was so upset that I ended up having to leave early yesterday, but I am now binge watching her shows because I don't get the opportunity to do it because we're prepping for here. So I tend to I'm binge watching her show. So you guys make sure you watch Let's Talk About North Carolina.
Yes.
Because that's Renata Saunders, Yarborough Saunders.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, next week, we're going to talk to Shelly, Joanna, and Renata about the university research. But thank you all again. I'm LaJoy. You can stay on for a minute. I'm Donya.
I'm Brian, and we will see you next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yes. So thank you guys. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.